Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this session with us this afternoon. I'm sure, I imagine many of you are here because you're interested in your talent, you're interested in your people, or you're focused on the skills that your company needs to move it forward. I'd also imagine you're probably concerned about how you both attract and retain your talent. And after this week, I'm sure that with all that we've learnt about Gen AI, you're thinking about what kind of skills are needed to keep up with this new technology, or perhaps even more scary, how do we think about new skills and new roles for those people whose jobs might have been displaced by Gen AI technology? And that's what I'm going to do over the next 30 minutes, is share with you that I think building a learning culture in your organization is one of the best ways to set it up for success as we think about this dynamic world in which we live in. The World Economic Forum has said that by 2025, 40% of the skills, the tasks that we do today that will be obsolete. So this idea of a learning culture becomes a key business imperative moving forward. My name is Linda Moss, and I head up Cloud Learning Services here at Google Cloud. We're the team responsible for a lot of formal training for our customers, our partners, Googlers, as well as thinking about the future workforce. And over the next 30 or 40 minutes or so, what I'd like to do is to share with you this concept of what is a learning culture and the importance of it to our world today. What I'm going to do is, in the short time that we have together, is cover these following areas. We'll talk a little bit about what is a learning culture, what we mean by it, right? When we use that expression itself, what exactly is it and why is it important in today's world? I'd then like to spend a large part of my time talking about the learning culture at Google. How do we do it here, and how do we think about the philosophy of learning and building this continuous learning culture where your learning is always on? So share with you some examples then, particularly about the area in which I work, which is cloud. I'd then like to share some practical tips about getting started. If this is something you've not invested in so much so far, what are some of the things, the easy wins that you can be doing to think about making learning more ubiquitous about your organization? And then lastly, I'm hoping we'll have time for questions and comments for the last few minutes. So does that sound okay? Excellent. All right, thank you. So let's go then into what we mean by a learning culture. And I thought the best place to start, since we've talked about Gen AI so much this week, why don't we start actually with asking Bart, our conversational AI chat function, about what that thinks is a learning culture. And Bart tells us that a learning culture is one in which employees are encouraged and supported to learn new skills and knowledge. This can help them be more productive, engaged, and innovative in their work. So in my words, having a learning culture is like having a shared set of beliefs and values that says learning and creating talent is so important that we're going to invest and prioritize it. Because we believe that developing our people and supporting them in this way will foster their ability to grow, engage, and be more innovative in the day-to-day. And I think all of us in technology will agree this has become so prevalent over the last couple of years. I mean, this isn't something related to Gen AI only. This is something that we saw with cloud. We saw how the shortage of cloud skills has really driven up salaries and the scarcity of talent in this space. And we're seeing the same kind of things now as we move into the Gen AI field. And we think the proliferation of AI and its natural impact here on companies and people's work will, in the way that it displaces people's roles as well as create new roles, the importance of this is even more prevalent in the day-to-day. So let's talk a little bit then about how we think about this at Google. At Google, we've got many what we call PAs, organizations that do things very, very differently. YouTube is very different from cloud. Cloud is different to ads. but there are certain principles and philosophies we hold across the whole of Google, and learning is one of those. And so those are the aspects that I would like to kind of go into over the next few minutes together. In order to have this consistent approach to learning, across Google we have something we call an L&D Council. That is something that keeps learning high on everybody's agenda and ensures that we are all aligned in holding the philosophy of Google high in the organizations in which we're part of. And in L&D, the L&D Council, we have this mission here that, again, is focused on consistency whilst also allowing for the uniqueness of each individual organization. So as we believe here, and this really is underpinning why we think of this culture of learning as being so important. In the Google's future will be defined not only by the growth of our products, but the growth of our people. And to achieve this, our mission is to pursue a thriving learning culture by enabling world-class learning experiences for all Googlers through meaningful growth opportunities and creating consistency where we can, whilst preserving uniqueness where we must. And as I talk about learning today, what you'll see me talk about is not just introducing formal learning programs. I live in the L&D space, I live in the education space as part of the everyday, but a learning culture is more than that. And so you'll hear me talk a lot about the importance of providing experiences, world-class learning experiences and growth opportunities in the day-to-day that really underpins the importance of having that always on, always learning mentality as part of the organization. And I think as well, the mission of the L&D Council, again, do allow that whilst we want this overarching mission statement and have consistency, we do want to allow that uniqueness that makes the individual PAs that are part of Google so special and unique in all their own ways. So we talk about this concept of a learning philosophy. And I'd like to share with you the 5 main elements that we think make up what we believe a learning culture consists of. And as I go through them, I'm going to introduce them over quickly, and then I'm going to go through each individually and share how we at Google Cloud bring this to life. So first of all, when we think of our learning philosophy, we think that learning happens in real life, right? My role is to create learning programs, and I'm passionate about quality learning programs that we put together for all our audiences. But I think we know that much of our learning happens in real life, right? We learn when we're challenged. So learning doesn't only happen in the classroom. Learning happens in the flow of work. And Googlers tell us every day that they learn on the job. And so when we think about building a learning culture, it's those kind of elements that we've got to be very thoughtful and embed into the way that we approach the day-to-day. We always also talk about learning being personal. Everyone has their own preference and motivations about how and when and how they want to learn. And so we also believe that they take an active role in shaping their own learning. So whilst you'll see that I will talk about some formal programs and experiences that we put together, we also believe, and we embed it in everyone that joins the company, that learning is the responsibility of the individual. It is our role as organization leaders or program owners or even managers to provide those opportunities and spaces. But as individuals join Google, again, this always learning mentality is built into what we do. The third thing we want to talk about, and I'm going to talk through, is that learning is social. And Googlers have told us that they turn to each other for information, advice, and help. So when we think about learning again, we want to intentionally create learning opportunities for Googlers to learn from each other, as well as build their network. And again, as I go through these in more detail, I'll share with you some opportunities and some examples about how we bring this to life. Learning is all around. It doesn't, as we say, just happen in the classroom, from a book, from a video, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then when we do talk about formal learning programs, we think about learning being a process, not an event. It's not something you go to from 9 till 12 and then, hey, presto, you walk out through osmosis, having acquired some brand new skill. We believe to be really effective, it needs to be a process as well. So let's take a look at each of those in more detail, and I'll share with you a couple of examples, particularly from Google Cloud, how we're starting to bring this to life. So I think many of you know this rule here, the 70-20-10 rule. It's from McCall, Ischinger, and Lombardo. And as I said, I'm part of the learning team, and I'm very much responsible for the 10% at the end. But the belief here is that 70% of learning actually happens on the job, part of the day-to-day experience and trying it out for oneself. 20% happens in informal learning, learning from each other, that social learning element. Learning from, we used to call it in the UK, a bit of an old expression, sitting by Nelly, right? You'd sit by a co-worker, you'd learn informally from them, shadowing and mentoring. And then you've got that 10% of the formal learning, and all this fits together. And that's nothing new in this. I think this has been around now for a couple of decades. But I think it's how we embed it into the day-to-day and make it part of the work life, the flow of work that's become the more common expression that brings this to life. And I'll share with you a couple of examples how we do bring this to life at Google. So the first thing, when we think about this, learning happens in real life and 70% on-the-job experience. First thing that we make as part of work at Google is what we call stretch projects or 20% projects. It's very common as people get into their role after they've got through their Noogler time, which is what we call onboarding, that we encourage individuals to look for those stretch opportunities. We've hired them for a certain reason. Good example, maybe a consultant. Potentially, we've hired them as an infra consultant. But maybe we need them to start thinking about new emerging technologies, such as Gen AI. Here's the opportunity through these 20% projects that they start to take on and learn more responsibility in this adjacent space. The result, again, is it becomes part of the flow of work. It's not extra. It's not something they do in the evenings. We embed this into the day-to-day. It's built into their expectations, their MBOs, and it's part of the way that it's just acquiring different skill sets. Second one we have here is really thinking about this 20% informal learning. Somewhere where we've really taken advantage of this, learning happens on the job, is an early in career program we've run here at Cloud called CTRs, Cloud Technical Residents. These are early in career grads that come to us straight out of university, and we put them through a 9-month program. And there's elements of this 70-20-10 throughout this 9-month program. The first 3 months, they're learning, they're on the right, that formal learning about the technology, getting certified, all that good stuff. And then we put them out into rotations where they're doing that informal learning and on the job. They're part of a team. They're working with somebody a little bit senior to them, but they're embedded in customer opportunities, partner opportunities, or wherever they land as part of their rotation. And that combination of having that formal learning with that wonderful, safe, informal learning, being shadowed and mentored and then reverse shadow and mentoring really helps us firm new skills, build confidence, which is a huge part of learning, and again, make sure that that ramp to acquiring new skills works well. The third one we also do is someone, I don't know if anybody's heard the expression bungee. If we have Googlers in the room, I'm sure they'll know that. A bungee is, again, another wonderful on-the-job learning experience. I don't know if it's the same in your company, but we have a workforce that's a lot younger than I am. And so we have parents wanting to go out on maternity, paternity, baby bonding leave, which can take up to 5 months. So what do you do in those situations? You've got jobs that still need to be done. And so bungee opportunities are ones where you can go and take another role for 6 months while that person is away. Maybe I'm running a team of temp workers. So I'm not really considered a people manager at Google, but a people manager has left. So there's an opportunity for me to step into that role, to apply for that role, get that formal experience, and again, build my leadership skills. After 6 months, I come back to my day job then, but I've come back with these brand new skills to be ready to step up for the same opportunity in my own organization or perhaps an adjacent organization as well. So as we think about learning happening in real life and in the flow of work, these are the kind of examples that we think really bring that 70, 20, 10% aspect of learning to life, embedding it into the day-to-day. So that's what we mean by learning happening in real life. The second aspect that I mentioned on that first chart was learning is personal. And as we said, we think about this in 2 ways. Learning is personal in that it's about self-exploration, it's about gaining knowledge, it's about building confidence, as well as expanding skills. And again, as we've said, so it's personal in that way that an individual wants to learn in a certain way, but it's also personal in that I said at the beginning, we believe that whilst we as managers absolutely have the responsibility to create learning opportunities and programs for our employees, they're actually learning and their skill development is their prerogative and the focus that they should take ownership of. And I think, if we think of all of us in the technology sector, this has been so important, this always on, always learning mindset. But all we do as part of it is to build that into how we think of putting together our programs. So 2 examples I'll share with you here. We have a learning platform called Grow, which is, think about it as a massive library that is not formally program-oriented, but is there for anybody to access. So maybe I want to ramp up my project management skills. Maybe I want to get better in negotiation. Maybe I just want to kind of get better in things like well-being and think about how I best balance work-life careers. Lots of different topics there. But one of the things to help really bring that to life is to have initiatives and programs that everybody is able to access. And our Grow platform allows that personal, go in, take some training, take what you need, and move on. It's your choice as an individual that you go out and get that type of learning. The other piece that we've done as part of this, a new program in my own organization, again working with consultants, we introduced for our senior consultants something we call a one-to-one program. One-to-one is that, again, you've been hired in one area of technology. And whilst that's great, we don't want you to stop there. We want you to expand your skill set. So 1 means 1 major, 2 minor, 1 technology. All this is important for our technology individuals to be adept and to be able to advise our customers. Our customers work in different industries. We want them to be ensuring that they're equipped and up to date with what's happening in industries. Whilst they may be great in one technology, such as infra, we want them to make sure that they know what's happening in other technologies, data management, even the network side, security. And so they are encouraged every year to put down a new one-to-one. They'll always have their major. We want them to be growing in that field, and we expect that as part of their role here at Google. But we also want them to be thinking of adjacent and building their skills that are not only an advantage for them in being more marketable, more expert, but also for us as we need the broad breadth as well as depth. So one-to-one, has been a great initiative where individuals choosing what they want to focus on, working with their managers to ensure that there's synergy there and also accountability. But it's been a great way for us to think about growing the individual, but also for us as a company to grow the skills that we know we need more of, particularly as new technologies grow. Third one we think of here, I mentioned this, learning is social. People love learning from each other, and that's the way it sticks. Building networks, learning from each other, peer-to-peer learning, peer-driven learning programs. And a great example I'll share with you from Google here that has been really, I think, game-changing as we've, again, allowed people and encouraged people to learn from each other. Something we call G2G, Google to Google, and that's Googlers teaching Googlers. And G2G actually is a platform, okay? It's a platform where individuals go out there and can access, it empowers individuals to deepen their own skills and help build the skills of others while scaling learning across the globe. 10,000 Googlers annually, I believe, have taken part and accessed the G2G platform, which they can go out, get hold of materials that they then can use with each other in informal team meetings, to kick off off-sites, team building, aspects such as team building, fostering team developing, icebreakers to team vision, communication, presentation skills, innovation, creativity skills. It's a great way there, again, of networking, but also working with different teams and helping each other through these kind of opportunities. So G2G has been a great opportunity there for all of Google, really to step up, volunteer, and work with other teams across the organization. We also encourage it, learning as part of our ERG communities, our employee resource groups, where awareness and learning about each other, about different ethnicities, again, about different backgrounds, as well as different topics such as well-being and aspects of those, to take advantage of learning programs that come out of those groups as well. And what a great opportunity to have different teams, different groups together, again, learning from each other. And TechOn, one of our large technical annual summits here at Google, where it's not just about product managers and experts leading, but again, people sharing across different teams what they've learned, how they did something. We have things, aspects such as great wins, what was the magic, and what went wrong, because we always feel that learning from things that didn't go as planned are wonderful learning opportunities that can also be helpful to prevent other people falling in. So learning is social is the other one that we think of here. This is something probably one of my favorite when we think of learning at Google. Has anybody been to a Google office? Anybody use the bathroom at a Google office? Yeah. Anything you've noticed in the bathroom stall that maybe you don't see in other companies? Exactly. People point in here. We have these wonderful programs called Learning on the Loo. Little learning aspects and tips and tricks that are there on all the different bathrooms. If you're in an engineering building, you may also come across coding on the can. You may even come across testing on the toilet. So again, it really underlines, with a little bit of fun, that learning doesn't have to be in one place. It can be anywhere. It's all around us, and we should take the opportunity to think there's always time and there's always a place to be thinking about how we grow our own skills and our skill set there. And they're changed, if you ever are there, they're changed every week to make sure that your learning is not static, that you're continuing to develop, even in those precious, quiet personal moments of every day. All right. And then finally, in this last one of when we think of the philosophy of learning, obviously, there are lots of learning programs, and this is a huge area of investment. I was reading, I think it was an article in LinkedIn last week that talked about, as employers, we spend about $1,300 per person per year in formal learning programs. So getting that right and making the right investment is obviously core to this aspect of building a learning culture. This area, of course, is near and dear to my heart because this is the day job. But even as we put forward formal learning opportunities, we do think that to do it well, it's a process, it's not an event. So as I think about that, just to say a little bit about what I mean by that, when we think about learning, we think about it in various stages. First of all, it's about acquiring new knowledge, right? There may be a gap in a skill. There may be a new technology you need that you don't have that now. So there's this element of information transfer, knowledge transfer that takes place in a learning environment. And we think as learning professionals or as those putting together courses, make sure that there's that component there, that we're being very, very strategic and intentional about the learning and the knowledge we want them to acquire. But at Google, we're equally passionate about that second one, applying knowledge. I can watch things for hours. That doesn't mean I can do anything. And so with all that we have, we want to make sure that we're building the opportunity as part of this learning process to apply that knowledge. In our formal learning programs, if any folks have been through it, that's where our hands-on labs come in, right? Yeah, I'm following, I'm watching the demo, cool, get it. All right, now it's your turn. It's a different matter, right? So that ability to kind of practice in a safe environment, and it doesn't even have to be technology, yeah? That's why all those things, why I hate manager training and leadership training, you've got to do the role plays, right? You've got to get into the simulations, because whilst, for me anyhow, they're very, very painful, they're very, very helpful, right? They give me the chance to practice. They give me the chance to try it out in a safe environment, and it helps stick. So we see learning as very much part of that. So for every opportunity we have, where is the application of the learning there? Shortly after the knowledge has been acquired, right? The video has been read, the trainer has got up and has made their points and taken you through the demo. Timing is really important there. And then the other piece that I think is really important to how we think about this area of learning is validation. So yes, we've sat there, we've watched the demo, or we watched a video with a great practice example. We've tried it out a little bit, but has anybody tested us in any way that we've actually got it, right? And we get it and we've got it well. And that's where this whole area of validation comes in. For me, in the area of technical training, we have this in the form of credentials or even what we call challenge labs, right? Challenge labs for us, as an example, in the technology field, is really just being given a scenario and you have to solve it, right? That's a way of validating. No tips, no additional prompts. Can you do it or can you not? And again, building that in to the learning environment is a great way for two things, to allow leaders, managers to validate. Does this person know what they're doing? Particularly in the area of technology where we have some very important and very complex environments. And does the individual have the confidence to do it on their own? And that's where the validation comes in. And then that aspect of reinforcement, where again, we're now linking it back to that learning on the job, making sure that we're always having those opportunities to reinforce and take that knowledge and apply it, right, in engagements. For us, a lot of technical engagement for consultants. Again, pulling together those other components, maybe mentoring and shadowing, but people are trying it out and have the opportunity, again, to reinforce and keep that knowledge top of mind. So those are the kind of things that we think about there. Learning absolutely not an event, but learning more of a process, an ongoing aspect, even if it's from the formal learning side of the house. I'd like to also share one of the other examples we have at Google of what I consider is one of the best learning programs that we have. We're very fortunate to have had the ability to invest in particular, the area of leadership. And Google has significantly invested in this whole area of leadership with the belief that great managers must be great leaders, and that is the primary driver for Google's growth and success. And I don't know if you've heard of the Google School of Leadership, but really has done some phenomenal work on providing formal learning opportunities, again, across the Google environment and ecosystem, and really believes that to foster, needs to, again, foster a best environment for learning. And this is where even setting and surroundings matter. So the Google School of Leaders has actually established something called the schoolhouse. And I use this example here to say, when we are thinking about optimizing learning in an environment and this whole concept, again, of a learning culture, even the space where learning takes place really adds to the experience and the stickiness and does it land and building those skills. And the schoolhouse, as part of the School of Leaders, was a space specifically designed to promote discovery, space for learning, and really build in some multi-sensory elements of building in creativity, risk-taking, and all those kind of aspects. So I'd love to show an example of it now, because I think it's very special about some of the different ways when you're committed to a culture of learning, you're really thinking from all aspects. And this is the schoolhouse here.
Welcome to the Schoolhouse, created by the Google School for Leaders. More than a meeting space, the Schoolhouse is a home for learning and leadership development. This first-of-its-kind space is designed to promote curiosity, creativity, and innovation. With 3 large sections for collaboration, breakout rooms for small groups, and an outdoor patio. The space can transform to create intimate experiences or foster connection in large groups. By integrating neuroaesthetics, it's designed to engage our brain differently and impact how we learn. There's something to discover around every corner. From curated curiosities to an edible garden, the Schoolhouse offers a unique approach to learning. Ready to come visit?
I know we're very spoiled, aren't we? Very cool place there that, again, we leverage for leadership to think about the best way to land learning, to really immerse oneself in it. But even if not everyone has the opportunity to do something like that, and that's one place that happens to be just up the road here in Mountain View. Just hopefully, what I'd like to do now is move across to some practical tips that I think we can leverage as we think about this whole concept of the culture of learning. So moving on to a few things as we go to the last part of the presentation today, a couple of practical tips that I think really matter, that are easy to implement and that should be part of everything that we do. So one of the things, and I think this kind of sums up some of the concepts that I've talked about so far, this whole aspect of learning in the flow of work, right? Making learning a priority and embed it into the flow of work. And that's something that we do as part of working at Google, right? I'm sure you all have MBOs. What is the acronym? MBOs, KPIs, objectives, expectations, all those cool things. But one of the things we make it part of the process at Google is one of my MBOs, my expectations, needs to be on learning. It needs to be on developing and building a new skill set. Now, that's something that I can decide myself, going back to that learning is personal. But this is something that we write down, we commit to, we agree with our manager, and we check in with our managers on. And it happens at all levels of the company, right? Obviously, those newer to the company have a huge amount of learning, but those that are maybe a little bit older also have learning MBOs, learning expectations that we take very seriously. So one of the ways there, I think, as we think of a learning culture, just make it part of the expectation of what it is to work in your company. Others, we do it. Another example that I would say is something we call LEAP. In this idea of build it into the flow of work, quarterly learning plans, setting the expectation, again, from a company level, that everybody will do this kind of training this quarter. Right? But it just makes it feel that this is not something adjacent, ad hoc. This is an expectation that if you work for this company, if you work in my team, if you work in my org, that is part of who we are when it comes to this. And really, again, an important piece, I think, of this aspect of a culture. Second piece here is encouraging the sharing of knowledge. And this is back to that social aspect of learning. I think one of the expressions, there's a lovely quote, isn't there, that says, I think it's Joseph Hubert, I wrote down in my notes, to teach is to learn twice. It means that when you teach something you know to someone else, you enhance your understanding of it. So preparing to teach a concept requires you to think about it, potentially from another one's perspective, but that can provide, again, a deeper understanding. And something that we have at Google that we call G-Thanks, right? It's a way of formally thanking each other. It's a platform where we can recognize and thank more publicly our colleagues. One of the main uses of G-Thanks is somebody has taught me something. Somebody has shared their knowledge. Somebody took the time to spend 30 minutes, 1 hour. I shadowed them for half of the day. So this whole concept of encouraging the sharing of knowledge, but recognizing and potentially rewarding, because sometimes there's monetary value attached to these G-Thanks as well, is a great way to just say, we expect this of you. We recognize its importance, and we want to recognize you for doing it as well. So that whole concept of encouraging the sharing, and as I said, rewarding and recognizing is, I believe, one of the strongest ways to think about this concept, again, of a learning culture. And then if you're thinking about the programmatic element, that 10% of the formal learning, a couple of things, right? If you want to make learning stick, right, and be impactful and effective, certain things, I'll point out two of the ones here that we believe. Gamification, a word that's used in learning an awful lot, but that really brings it to life. Having a bit of fun. Awards, leaderboards, points, competitions. People by nature, I think, are very competitive. And what a wonderful way to kind of have a bit of fun with the aspect of learning as well, with this whole aspect of gamification. The other one, and again, as I think of the learning culture, where it lands is the importance of all the people managers that we work with in our organization. Manager supported or leader led. I talked to one of my colleagues and I was telling him a little bit about this presentation. And he said, creating a culture of learning, all you have to do is two things. You have to mandate it and make sure you have visibility and the numbers are sent to your boss. He said, then you got it. You got to sort it, right? That's what it's about. Mandate it, track it, and report it to leadership. Watch that change. But I think that may be, more of the stick than the carrot. But it does say a lot here, I think, about managers leaning in. Whenever we roll anything out in my team, we try and involve the managers first. If we can get them bought in, we know they'll roll it down to their teams. but also the ability as well, as we think about this, we found that the visibility and the tracking of how people are doing is really critical, right? How can we ask our managers to support these kind of initiatives if we don't show them what's going on? So that very much is where things like the tracking, the visibility, and then back again to that recognize and reward. Yes, some companies go for the stick. We like to think much more of the carrot and the wins and the takeaways that we can get for it. So hence the importance there of the recognition and the reward. And I think that's the last piece that I wanted to share with you as part of this aspect of ideas around a culture of learning. I'll end with another quick video. This was just a team offsite recently with the focus to teach and to impart and to get our teams adopting a new methodology, a new process methodology. And I've just captured a few of the things that happened over those 2 days. And so as you look at it, think back to what I talked about, flow of work, social, personal, gamification, fun, because these are the things that I would advocate is ones that make it stick, make it last, and can absolutely build new skills. So gamification, a lot of the managers there, the dancers, I don't know where that was going, but this whole idea about having fun and creating experiences that are memorable, that people don't feel are, yet another thing that I have to focus on in part of my day-to-day role. So as we wrap up, and then I think we've got a couple of minutes for questions. As we wrap up on this topic of building a culture of learning, I'd like to leave you with one main takeaway, right? McKinsey, in their research, has told us that 1/3 of people leave a company because they feel they're not invested in, they're not developing, or they're not building any skills. 1/3 of our people leave for that reason. At the same time, article from LinkedIn last week, I read that LinkedIn estimated that losing an employee can cost up to 1.5 to 2 times that employee's salary to replace. So I would advocate, as we think about this topic of learning and a learning culture, particularly in this environment where learning and skilled talent is at a premium, building a learning culture, investing in our people is not just a great idea, it's a business imperative for us all to be successful as we look ahead.